go. Well, Eric, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I've looked forward to the conversation. I know with the pandemic and all that we've been through as a country of late, it has been a challenge for for all of us. And for those of you who don't know, I'm with Eric Betts. Eric is a pastor. He's also he and I work together in the Coleman Center there at Athens State University, and he's a friend. Most of all, a friend that we've worked together now for some years, and we've talked about a lot of topics, Eric, across the years. We've talked about a lot of things that pertain to ethics, to leadership, and we've talked about the religious aspect of life as well. And so what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about the situation that that we're in as a country and in the world itself. And I thought having this kind of conversation would be a good place to begin. We won't answer all the questions, but we can get a good start here today, Eric. So thank you for joining me.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes. I'm glad that I could join you today. And it's true that we're living in very unusual times. And one of the things that I've said to several, those of the church, those that I've come into contact with in the community, there are many lessons to be learned during this pandemic. And
right.
I try to emphasize our lives are so busy, our lives are so rushed. But in this season, we get the opportunity to improve ourselves and take advantage of the moments that we have at home with our families. Let's just say for example, we had to leave the house so early in the morning, we don't have time to do that exercise routine.
Right.
But now we have that opportunity to do that. That book that we wanted to read, we said we never had a chance to do that. We can read that book now.
That's right.
Those skills that we said we wanted to learn, to acquire, that new language we wanted to learn, we didn't have time for. We can take advantage of those moments now. And so that's why I've emphasized the fact that we may not ever get this opportunity ever again. Most likely we won't in this lifetime.
That's right, Eric. That's
opportunity.
You're exactly right, and it's easy to overlook that aspect of it. That this could be an opportunity to live a little deeper, a little more intentionally with our life.
Oh,
I know, sometimes we get in the rut of moving so fast that we just skim off the surface, just in a superficial kind of way. This does give us a chance to stop for a little bit and think about the way we're living our life. And are we living a life where we can that goes into the depths, that goes to the core? And Henry David Thoreau said he went to the woods because he wished to live more deliberately. This is a season where we can do that, and so I agree with you. The current crisis that we're in around the world, and I wanted just to talk about the present moment and some of the underlying issues, because we've got this wonderful partnership that we've had across the years of being working together at the Coleman Center there at Athens State, and also uniquely, both of us pastors of Baptist churches. You're in Corinth, Mississippi, and I'm here in Madison County in Alabama, and yet this crisis, I want to talk a little bit about it and some of the underlying issues. I want to get your perspective on this, Eric. I know with what we saw in that tape with George Floyd is beyond shocking. It was heartbreaking And it has, galvanized a movement that is, I think, an important movement, and one that we can learn from and grow from. And so I want to talk about that for a little bit, if you're all right, and us go in that direction today with this conversation. There have been, so that initially, and still going on now, I don't know about over in Corinth or whatever, but I know in Huntsville, even tonight, I think there's a large protest that is scheduled. I know that across the country and the world, people are protesting around the world. And then, of course, there have been some of those protests in cities have turned violent, more into riots. But this is this is what I tried to say this yesterday to my congregation in the video, that, people may be a little uneasy about the protest, at least in the white church. I'll say it that way, a little uneasy about in the violence. But, my understanding is in no way should anyone as a Christian be diminishing this call for justice. This is an important call. This is no moment to diminish or minimize not only the need for justice, but also the cry of the oppressed, that it would be not only missing the moment. I think it means you're on the wrong side of history, on the wrong side of the gospel, if you're not, if you don't understand what the moment is. I don't know. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. One of the things that I see as it relates to justice in the church right now is you can't avoid delving into that topic, because this is on everybody's mind.
That's right.
To go and to speak on other topics is almost as if you're tone deaf.
Yeah, that's right.
So you really do have to address what's the conscience of the people in the moment, because this is a very historic moment. And
right.
As you mentioned about Mr. Floyd, and many even talk about some of the other cases with Arbery and Breonna Taylor, but the George Floyd situation, I think, even though there are many who are uneasy about what protests can lead to, I think that the effect of the George Floyd, and seeing George Floyd with the officer with the knee on the neck, and seeing his life leave from him,
right?
I think it had the same effect, maybe not at the same level. I'm thinking about the Birmingham church bombing.
Right.
And I think about the Emmett Till case. Now, I don't put this on that same level of impact, but when people can see pain, when they can see suffering, when they can see somebody crying out for their mother, it appeals to their humanity.
That's right.
Whereas in other cases, they may have been dismissive about it, or maybe focused on it for a moment and moved on. I think it appealed to the conscience, like Dr. King talked about. It appealed to the common humanity, and I think that's why the protests have garnered such widespread support.
I agree, Eric. I agree. I like Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "A riot is the language of the unheard," and I think that often we overlook that there is in this country many people who have been marginalized. They feel unheard. There's been no justice for them, and I think that this whole crisis has revealed a systematic kind of injustice and racism that's still with us as a nation, that it's still here. And that's not easy to acknowledge, but I believe it to be true. And I just think for anyone to try to dismiss the issue or minimize the issue, it misses the point altogether. These are real issues of injustice, and there's racism, and there's socioeconomic issues that need to be addressed. If you want peace and healing, there's no way any of us can ignore those realities.
Oh yes, and if you talked about the socioeconomic and the racial aspect, and the racial aspect and the socioeconomic aspect grows out of the stereotypes,
Right.
which will cause the system to target certain ones more than others.
Yeah.
And that's just a reality.
Yes.
It all goes back to the racial profiling, where the stop and frisk situation in New York and other places is the racial profiling. And even if it's not a department is not openly practice racial profiling, it's built into the system.
Yes.
So, and those who are protesting right now recognize that it's not just about this one officer, this one case. It's this case opened up people's eyes to the racial profiling and the police brutality that grows out of that, the stereotyping of who's most likely to be a criminal, and those kinds of things grow out of that. And when we talk about the way to remedy this, we can't remedy it by being quiet.
That's right.
Once the nation is awakened to what's going on, there has to be a protest. If you just look at America, what happened in 9/11.
Right.
What happened there caused people to come together and to mobilize all the resources to try to resolve that situation.
Right.
And this is like a 9/11, a mini 9/11, so to speak, which really, look at it on a large scale, it has an impact for the Black community, the same way that 9/11 has impact for America. So what does America do? They go and they try to fight for freedom. The military fights for freedom. Now, the link to all of this is when it comes to justice, you can't fight overseas for justice. Injustice is an internal situation. So
that's right.
Justice has to be fought for internally just as vigorously as freedom is fought for on foreign soil, brother.
That's right.
Robbie.
That's a good word here.
That's what America is coming to right now. And the world.
I agree with that, and I agree with you about the protests. I think that's exactly right. And I think that it gives voice. It gives voice, and also is a reminder to all of us of the importance of justice, and that this is going to be, not just a cry for a week or a call for justice no. I think this is an opportunity for us to move more in that direction as a nation, that we have this opportunity now. And I think that those of us who are educators, those of us who are in the church, I think we have this moment, this opportunity to not only have the dialogue, but also do the hard work of helping move us toward a more just. We talk about in our country, right? Liberty and justice.
Justice for all.
For all,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we're still striving as a country, I think, to live into our best self, into our best version of who we could be together as a people.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we have to recognize in the moment how important it is to value one another, to be able to recognize that all of us belong to the same family. We belong to the human family. And if people of faith, if we could at least begin there by acknowledging that, the ground of our being is, we spring from the same soil. That we are connected. We're brothers and sisters together, created by God, and we all are created in God's image. It just seems to me that there's still a lot of work to be done. I sense that and see it sometimes. Social media is a blessing. We're doing that now, but it can also be at times difficult to see when people put their opinion out there. And I see people wanting to dismiss some of these issues by using politics. They want to politicize the whole thing, or they want to talk about, this person's to the right, this person's to the left, this a Republican thing or a Democrat thing. It's not. This issue transcends all of that. This calls for solidarity from all of us.
Yes, I think that this moment, your children, your grandchildren are going to ask you, what were you doing in that moment? This is where in that stage. And I think that those who are being dismissive are going to regret later on that they did not lend their voice to help, but rather they used their resources to dismiss it.
That's
and
right.
I think that they're going to be sorely disappointed. One of the things that politics so often divides, but the encouraging sign that I'm seeing people from all different political perspectives now.
Yes.
Who are coming out and who are saying this is an injustice. I'm seeing people in Washington, D.C., senators, congressmen, from both sides of the aisle, going out and joining the protests that actually turned out to be very dangerous a few days ago. But they went out there to join with us. I saw in Washington, D.C. and some other places, the majority, and sometimes 90% of the crowd were not African Americans, but were white people out there protesting.
Exactly.
Because this is not a, one demographic is fighting against another. I think that people are realizing that we're all in this together. As Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yes.
And when George Floyd called out for his mother, it was a cry to all mothers. I think all mothers heard that cry. And so I think that's those who are dismissive. And one thing that I've seen is that there are many who use statistics. And they say, based on statistics, police brutality is not a big deal. We're making a big deal out of it. But sometimes statistics doesn't factor in compassion, doesn't factor in humanity, and doesn't factor in the principles of brotherhood.
That's right.
I mean, statistics, you could say anything that has ever happened, that's happened to bring a crisis to the country. We don't go on statistics because we recognize, let's say, for example, Pearl Harbor was a terrible thing. Tens of thousands lost their lives. Well, one might say, well, that's no big deal because thousands of Americans kill each other every day, way more than died at Pearl Harbor. No one does that in those situations. No. But what happens is people come together and they recognize that this is a terrible crisis situation. People are hurting. We want to come together to try to heal the wounds that have been made and to try to remedy the situation.
That's so true. That's so true. And I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful in that sense that I do see a solidarity movement growing. I see people coming together in powerful ways in the streets. I see it in churches. I see it in communities. I see people reaching across aisles. So, you know, my hope is that the movement continues to grow and that we keep moving toward a place where there is liberty and justice for all, that we do acknowledge that we are brothers and sisters together. And, you know, there's work to still be done, of course, but we can move in that direction. And I think having the dialogue, just beginning with a dialogue, not enough. You got to go further. You got to go beyond that. That dialogue's got to lead to a partnership that puts feet and hands in the streets and in communities to help build a bridge. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about building a bridge. When Vicky and I visited Turkey in Istanbul, we that Bosphorus bridge, that bridge that spans that great gulf of water, it connects the East and West, and it became for me this beautiful symbol, image of what I think this moment calls for and what it could be for all of us. And at least I want to be someone who's working on that bridge. And the other side of it, as a Christian, I know for a fact that Christ was in the business of tearing down any wall or partition that divided us.
Yes, yeah.
There was no Jew and Gentile in Christ. There wasn't. No bond or free, no male or female. There's no black or white. As a Christian, we're supposed to be working together to tear the walls down and build the bridge. So we've got work to do, but you know, it's moving. I think this movement has been something of a wake-up call. I think that's what you called it, and I agree with you on that. So what I want to do, Eric, is I want to continue the conversation in the near future. Would you be willing to do that with me? And we could pick up and have some conversations across the next few weeks on this issue.
Oh yes, I'd be glad to join you on that.
I would too. Let me and so I'm going to let's see.